Make a move and the bunny gets it.
I said, put the bunny back in the box. Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
It's showtime.
Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I want to know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I want to know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Hey there, welcome to the Autopsy. Character Autopsy. It's Thursday night. Tonight on the slab is Mr. Allan Quartermain. Of course, I've just now recently discovered it's Quatermain, but we're going to go with Quatermain because everybody says Quatermain. Anyway. Anyway, so first cut, Allan Quartermain happens to be the like root character of a lot of like a lot of stories that we are common knowledge now, but not everybody knows who Allan Quartermain is. Everybody knows who Indiana Jones is. Everybody knows who Lara Croft is. Everybody knows who the Goonies were. Seen those movies. Maybe not as many as you used to because kids don't watch the great movies anymore. But anything that has at its element a kind of like adventurer who goes on treasure hunts and maybe runs into maybe some supernatural elements or to like creatures that shouldn't exist or things like that. They come from the root tree of Allan Quartermain. Now he has some roots in some earlier adventures, but let's talk about that. So Allan Quartermain happens to come from the writer H. Rider Haggard. I mean, make sure I got that right. H. Rider Haggard. Yep. H. Rider Haggard. R-I-D-E-R. But he happened to be the writer. There you go. Anyway, the first novel is 1885, King Solomon's Mines. So something written back in 1885, which is before the previous century, is still talked about today and is still creating IP today. Not bad. Not bad. Same with Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes was kind of a contemporary of this character. As a matter of fact, the adventure novel explosion that happened around this time pretty much created pop culture as we know it. Around that time you got H.G. Wells putting out a lot of stuff, and in America, you have Edgar Allan Poe and some other luminaries that were beginning to produce like what we later became pop culture. This like proceeded from this era of like adventure novels proceeded into the pulps, which proceeded into superheroes, which is where we are now. Um, so you could say that these adventure novels and these men, like Tarzan, who else? What's the other one? Conan, people like that. That these people they were maybe not supernatural or super, and in a lot of ways, but they had like something about them that was really exceptional that made them special. Now it's odd, but now when H. Rider Haggard you first see Allan Quartermain, he is actually an elderly, kind of older man. He's buried 2 wives, he's buried a son, and he's kind of like over it, and yet he's pulled back into adventure. And so the rest of adventure novels kind of give you backstory as to where he came from. But the first one, King Solomon Mines, was pretty much introduced him. He has a background in Royal Navy. He started out before that. He was a product of a single father, Christian missionary. Lived among the indigenous people. Absolutely hates the British cities, and so he is pretty much like an outdoorsman to a ultimate extreme, in that he literally cannot stand to be in what we would consider polite society. If he gets in London, he wants out of London as soon as possible. The only thing exceptional about him, he's not really an exceptional athlete. He's not exceptionally handsome. As a matter of fact, the description of him is that he's wiry, small, unattractive, with a beard and short hair that sticks up. But he is the best shot. Like, he has no peer, no equal when it comes to his ability to hit a target from a distance. He's a big game hunter and guide, and he spent most of his time in Africa. As a matter of fact, a witch doctor declared that Africa will not let Allan Quartermain die. And multiple times throughout the book series, something happened that where everybody was sure he was dead, and he shows up, and that's his explanation for it. Africa won't let me die, and that's one of those supernatural elements. Oh, hey, John. Yeah, that is one of the Adventures of Sir Richard Burton. Yep, that's one of them. That's definitely one of the people he was inspired by. He was also inspired by oh gosh, there's an African missionary. Just flew out of my head. Give me 1 second. Let me look it up. Well, this guy discovered the Nile River. Or David Livingstone. Okay, David Livingstone. Yeah. So it's inspired by David Livingstone. Burton is one of them. Yep. Hold on a second. I want to have Burton in a future issue of Heroic Tales when he went to the Old West for a secret mission. Oh, all right. All right, there, awesome. Um, yeah, that also explains the explosion of the adventure novel in that era. Guess what else was like really big along that time? Penny Dreadfuls, telling the stories of the Old West. And not many people make that connection, but all fiction exists in the same ecosphere, okay? And so the Old West, pioneering and the wildness of it, the newness of it, the expansion of the Old West. You know, you had the good guys, the bad guys, the good guys being the expansion, and the bad guys being the Indians, and some of the vile things that the Indians would do. And it was very much reminded people of the exploration of Africa. And so a lot of those stories had like some crossover there. When you watch the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the comic itself didn't really have an American, yeah, like American in it, you know, because Alan Moore despises America and all it stands for, even though he's made all of his money over here. Of course, Alan Moore pretty much despises everybody, including Alan Moore. So figure that out. But anyway, I digress. But you know, when they added in the movie, which I actually liked the movie, I think it needs a director's cut like mad, but maybe a director knew what he was doing. But anyway, because the bones are there. But he added Tom Sawyer, and Tom Sawyer was Mark Twain's character. He was a little earlier. Tom Sawyer was actually earlier than these novels. But Tom Sawyer was a good addition. I really liked that addition. It made sense. They also added the Dorian Gray, which wasn't in the original book series either, but made perfect sense. It's really a good movie to me. You lovable curmudgeon. I don't know about lovable, but he is definitely got a he's definitely a curmudgeon. But I like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Mainly one of the reasons why he used a lot of characters that would have been lost to history. You know, but they were in public domain, so he could use them and didn't have to worry about any, you know, any like families turning up inconveniently. But essentially, Allan Quartermain is the bones for, you know, almost that whole entire genre of fiction, that adventurer to foreign land, you know, finding a like mythical like having finding a mythical artifact and encountering, you know, evil people wanting to exploit it, and he wants to take it and for the good of mankind. And he is like extraordinary in that he can overcome any obstacle by the skin of his teeth, and he's never really quite. He never really knocks it out of the park. He never dominates anything. He pretty much wins because he's just that cunning. You know, not in that cunningness, we come to our next part. Is he pulp or is he noir? Now, in my writing philosophy, pulp is people who are kind of, they have something supernatural about them. They have a code of ethics that they follow, adhere to 100%, and that could be good or bad, but they have a code of ethics. And they are like as true as the North Star. You know exactly what to expect from them in every decision that they make. So it's with very little variation. Now, noir characters, they have like a more situational ethics. They don't really have a morality that they follow. And so they can skew either good or bad, just depending on the situation. And they are willing to like blur the lines. And noir are usually very, very human. And in this case, this was a little difficult because I really had to kind of dig deep on this one. But I think at his very core being, he is Okay, the reason why this was hard to determine is because while I believe he's a pulp character, he is he's usually thrown into like situations for survival, and in that survival, he is willing to do whatever is necessary because he's, like I said, he doesn't dominate. He's very cunning, and so he basically to survive, or people of his party to survive, he is willing to go and do whatever he has to survive. Okay, a good example of that would be Indiana Jones. Seeing the guy swinging the sword and he's just like defeated these other guys and he's just done, pulls out the gun and shoots the guy. That's a Quatermain kind of like thing to happen. Quatermain might actually feign his own death and then shoot people from a distance, which has happened in a couple of his books. But basically, he is pulp for the most part, except he is willing to blur the lines, but he does it for pulp reasons. And so that's why it's a little difficult to categorize him as pulp, because there are times where those lines get blurred. But you ultimately have to look at his very core, and his very core of his being, he's a pulp character. Which whole lot of hola. What's up, Wrangler? Hey man. But in a lot of ways, a lot of the modern adaptations, they kind of make him skew more noir, because let's face it, it's modern adaptations, modern writers who think everybody has to be morally flexible. And Allan Quartermain was doing that back in 1885. Okay. So they think they're new, they're being edgy or whatever, but there's been characters that skewed like noir a little bit, even back then. And on his case, he would like most of the time he get drug into a situation. It was kind of like which the movie got right. The movie and the book the comic book got right, is that Quatermain never really volunteers in his books. It's kind of like part of his charm in that he just wants to be left alone. Most of the time he considers himself retired, or most of the time he's like mourning somebody, or he's just kind of checked out and doing his own thing. And then suddenly somebody's like, well, England needs you, or this person's in jeopardy that you love, or we need to find this artifact before somebody else gets it, and bad things happen. And so he gets drug into stuff all the time, kind of reluctantly. And along those lines, he's willing to do whatever it takes. Now, what's the writing challenges of somebody like that? Well, so say you want an Allan Quartermain type, and you're going to write him. Now, the reluctant hero with competence in things that very few people know about or have knowledge of, who gets kind of like drug along into plots and basically wins by the skin of his teeth, and wins by cheating, wins by being cunning rather than being physically dominant or being just that damn good. Which is kind of like Doc Savage we did earlier. Doc Savage's issue when you write him is that how do you, this guy is a martial artist, this guy's physically at the tip top, this guy's, Allan Quartermain's like the opposite of that. Allan Quartermain, most of the time he's not in that, he's not in robust health. He's most of the time he smokes, he drinks, You know, he kind of lives his life. He's not looking for adventure. Adventure's looking for him. And so once he gets into it, you know, he had some limitations because of the fact that he wasn't planning for anything to be coming along. It just kind of comes along, and he gets sucked up into it. So the challenge of writing somebody like that is where do you put their capability? Now, I've seen problems lately where somebody will start out a character with limitations, and because of they want it to go a certain way, they want the story to go a certain way. They will alter the limitations as they go, and suddenly they have more capacity than they started out with. And recent example of that is the first Tenure book. And it's written by two people I highly respect, you know, Mike Barron and oh gosh, what is his name? It just flew out of my head. Wrote the BattleTech series for a while. Blaine Pardoe. And I respect both of those guys, but they started out with their character at this capacity, right? And then when they needed him to be a badass, suddenly he had this capacity. And it was before he was like you know, lamenting the fact that he wasn't that well trained, that he didn't have this, you know, he wasn't that good at this, and suddenly they're like, oh, suddenly he's a good shot. Suddenly he knows more martial arts. Suddenly he's good at infiltration. Suddenly he had all this knowledge that he didn't start out with. And that's a problem, because, you know, it's really kind of lazy writing. I hate to say it. I mean, these two guys, I respect the shit out of them. They are way better than I am, and they got way more good work out there than I do. But at the same time, I got to call them on it. And I did a review where I called them on it. But you know, writing somebody like Allan Quartermain, okay, Allan Quartermain starts out with some limitations, and H. Rider Haggard figured it had this formula good. And you see this. Indiana Jones they did a real good job with the Indiana Jones movies, except for the last two, probably. But Indiana Jones is, most of the time he's at the skin of his teeth. Most of the time he lucks out. Most of the time he stumbles into stumbles into something or someone that helps him along his way. He doesn't really. Some people have stated that Raiders of the Lost Ark would have gone the way it did without Indiana Jones in it, but you know, I disagree with that. But the reason why is because he is a catalyst for things to happen, but he doesn't necessarily initiate the actions that happen around him. But he just kind of rolls with it, and it all seems to land on his feet. But the difficulty of writing somebody like that is figuring out what they're capable of and not moving beyond that. That's harder to write that person. It's harder to write a character with limitations. And you see this all the time, the Mary Sues that are in the Gary Sues that are out there. You see this all the time in comic book writing. But if you start out with their limitations and you give them the capacity to push themselves to their limits to succeed, then it becomes like something special, because you believe at the end of it that you root for them all the way through, right? Now, I've seen this happen where people have taken a character and they beat them beyond what any human being could take, and somehow they come out the top. Now, I read something yesterday. It's called "Son of the Black Sword." Larry Correia wrote it. Larry Correia is one of my favorite writers. If you haven't read any of his stuff, leave this stream right now and go get something with Larry Correia's name on it. That's LARRYCORREA. Okay, Larry Correia. And but he has this character named Ashok, and Ashok is a incredible warrior, and all the way at the end, man, he pushes himself. He takes on an army, man, and he pushes himself beyond his abilities. And then when the inevitable happens, and he gets beyond it, he left himself room for that. He set stuff up all along that when it came for something impossible to happen, he had seeds all along the way to make it possible. That takes prior planning, and that takes a lot of like dotting your I's and crossing your T's. It takes a lot of concentration to do that. But when you do it, it's the most satisfying thing on the planet when a plan comes together. You know what? You know, the Hannibal Lecter, or not Hannibal Lecter, but Hannibal from A-Team, Hannibal Smith. You know, I love it when a good plan comes together. You love it when somebody plays within those limitations and they succeed. Even though they had to push themselves to their limits, they still succeed. And I love stories like that. And they're a dying breed. Got a couple comments over here. Let me go ahead. The whole rabbit. Hola, Wrangler. Hey, I like Ike. So, what makes those characters fun, what makes them enjoyable, is that we all have our limitations. We're all well aware of our limitations. Well, I mean, there's people that aren't, but you know, we see that. But when somebody who is like too old, too retired, you know, they got like skills, but those skills might be rusty, you know, or they're like cranky. They're not people persons. You know, like Allan Quartermain's not a people person. He didn't like the cities. He pretty much loves natives more than he loves his own people. And but he has like friends that he's loyal to, and he'll die for those people. Now, characters like that, the reason why they resonate with people is because of those limitations. And if you want to write a good Allan Quartermain style character, then you could do worse by setting those limitations at the beginning and not going beyond them. Now, having somebody have a hidden ability, or you know, get lucky or go beyond those limitations when they have to, that is something that you have to like limit maybe once or twice a story, because if you go beyond that, then those limitations don't matter anymore. But it is fun when somebody does one thing that may be beyond what they could do normally, or you know, gets lucky, or finds that gear inside themselves for that one more thing to do. Then that can be a good story moment. But you got to use those sparingly. Sparingly. It can't be the rule, or you lose it altogether. So that is the problem with writing an Allan Quartermain. That's the writing challenge. Okay. So, these don't last very long. If you, I try to keep them purposely short, so because I just want to make evergreen content that's going to be helpful to people. And if they have a favorite character, I want to try to be succinct with it. And if you have a problem with anything I said about Allan Quartermain, feel free to leave a comment and let me know I'm full of shit. I'm totally okay with that. Now, the reason why Allan Quartermain still matters is because we're still writing Allan Quartermain stories. We're still seeing them come out. We're still seeing people use those Allan Quartermain like you know, tropes that were pretty much made popular by him. There's a movie called The Fountain of Youth that's coming out in like this month or next that uses a ton of Allan Quartermain style antics and tropes. And so it's still happening. They're still using these tropes today. Now, what as a writer, the thing that I find most inspirational about people like Allan Quartermain is 1885. That's when he was first put on paper and printed and put out to the populace. 1885. And we're still talking about people are still writing characters like him. That's how much impact he's had. And the most inspirational thing that I find about that is that what if I can write something that is going to inspire people to write something similar years down the road? And the one thing that I take away from Allan Quartermain is that human part of him. He's not superhuman except for his eyesight, except for his ability to hit a target. And yet he succeeded because he just couldn't lose. He just could not ever fail at a task. And Africa would not let him die. And so that's why we're still talking about Allan Quartermain. Got a few comments over here. Let me go ahead. Looks like we got. Okay. All right. Nobody interesting. Got good stuff. All right. Anyway. Hey, good stuff. Anyway, so that's the most important thing is that this guy in 1885 is still inspiring and still creating IP here in 2025. I didn't look up how many years later is that? Hold on a second. All right, so got the wrong one. Here we go. So, all right, so let's say 20, 25 minus 18, 85. So 140 years ago. So somebody written a first book was put out over 140 years ago. And yet there's IP coming out next month using a lot of the same a lot of the same elements that were in that first book. Writing can be eternal. There you go. I respect you, Mr. Good Stuff. I respect you. I was just joking. But anyway. But that's why I write. That's why I create. That's one of the reasons is you want to put something into the world. And there's bookshelves everywhere full of people trying to create an Allan Quartermain. And who knows? Maybe I'm writing him right now. Don't know it. But I doubt H. Rider Haggard knew that his creation that he was typing away or writing on the page on cardstock was going to still be talked about 140 years later, but here we are. So get out there and write. Anyway, so that's the door is closed, and we have closed up the body, and we have slid it back in the drawer, and that has been the autopsy of one Allan Quartermain. And may he live forever, because at 140 years old, the dude's still cooking. You can't shake sneer at that, can you? Anyway, yeah, thank you all for coming. And Mr. Good Stuff for coming really, really late. We do this at 6 o'clock if you want to come earlier. But anyway, but that's my usuals. Anybody have a character that they want me to cover for next week? Go ahead, put it in the chat. And we will, or I will pick one from my characters, the most important characters to cover. And so, anyone want to put that in the chat where they want me to go next week? I will give you the chance to do so. So, anyone have a character they'd like to see covered? No more Eric Cartmans, please. Somebody serious. that one was a tough one. Anyway. All righty. So nobody is giving me an idea, so I'll go ahead and choose a character. So what are characters that we need to know? All right. I'm going to go with Frankenstein's monster. Next week, we'll do Frankenstein's monster. Not Frankenstein, because he's not Frankenstein. His creator's Frankenstein. The monster. We're going to talk about the monster. Anyway. So that's going to be next week. And you must choose, but choose wisely. All right, Wrangler, do you think I did a good choice? Is that a good choice, Wrangler? Is that one that you'll come back for? Or do you have a better one? Nope. All right. All right, so next week we're going to do Frankenstein's monster. All right, Wrangler's there for it. All right, that's good enough for me. Anyway, thank you all for coming to the character autopsy, and we'll see you next Thursday night. This weekend, still don't know what the this cryptids and conspiracies is going to be about Nikola Tesla. Did the U.S. I think the question is going to be: did the U.S. The U.S. government steal his inventions? I think. If you choose not to decide, you've still made your choice. Yeah, I know the song. I still know the song. All right. Anyway. So, cryptids and conspiracies, did the U.S. government steal Nikola Tesla's inventions? That's going to be this weekend, the Saturday night. Cryptids and conspiracies. We will see you there. Bye, everybody. Soon as this pops up.